What if the most important parts of who we are lie hidden beneath the surface of our everyday awareness? What if the key to understanding ourselves isn't found in what we see or say, but in the mysterious depths of our unconscious mind? Carl Jung, one of the greatest pioneers of psychology, revealed that within each of us exists a vast inner world filled with symbols, ancient patterns, and unseen forces shaping every thought, feeling, and behavior. This hidden realm is not just a dark void, but a wellspring of wisdom and transformation, guiding us toward a fuller, richer life. Today, we'll dive into Jung's revolutionary ideas about the unconscious. Ideas that challenge how we view human nature and open the door to a profound journey of self-discovery. Get ready to explore the unseen architecture of your psyche and unlock the mysteries that have the power to change everything you thought you knew about yourself. Most people live their entire lives thinking they know who they are. They define themselves by their job, their likes and dislikes, their relationships, or even their beliefs. But Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, challenged this surface-level understanding of identity. He believed that the truth of who we are doesn't live in our conscious mind, the part we control, but in the vast, mysterious landscape of the unconscious. To Jung, the unconscious wasn't just a place where forgotten memories or suppressed desires were stored. It was the core of our psychological life. It's where the roots of our behavior, dreams, emotions, and even creativity come from. In simple terms, if the conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg, then the unconscious is the massive structure hidden beneath the surface, shaping everything from our decisions to our relationships, without us even realizing it. But why is this important? Because we all carry parts of ourselves we don't fully understand. Have you ever reacted in a way that surprised you? Have you ever felt drawn to something but couldn't explain why? These moments are hints that something deeper is at play. Jung believed that to truly grow, heal, and become whole, we must explore and integrate this hidden part of ourselves. He called this process individuation, becoming who you really are by uniting the conscious with the unconscious. Jung's approach was revolutionary because he didn't view the unconscious as merely a dumping ground for repressed thoughts, like Freud did. Instead, he saw it as alive, intelligent, and symbolic. It communicates through dreams, myths, fantasies, and even art. It has its own language, not logical or verbal, but emotional and imagistic. That's why dreams are so important in Jungian psychology. They aren't random. They're messages from the unconscious, pointing toward truths about ourselves we haven't yet faced. At the center of this understanding is the idea that we are not fixed beings. We are always becoming, and much of that becoming happens in places we cannot see. According to Jung, if we ignore the unconscious, we remain fragmented, unaware, and often in conflict with ourselves. But if we're brave enough to confront it, we unlock inner potential, deeper understanding, and psychological freedom. Imagine your mind as a house. The conscious mind is like the living room. It's what guests see, where everything is tidy and presentable. But the unconscious is the basement, dark, cluttered, filled with old memories, instincts, fears, and forgotten treasures. Most people are afraid to go into the basement, but Jung invites us to go down the stairs, open the boxes, dust off the old furniture, and maybe find something powerful waiting for us. A part of ourselves we've ignored for too long. This is the heart of Jung's revolutionary theory. It's not just about analyzing behavior or treating symptoms. It's about transformation. It's about peeling away the false layers, the roles, expectations, and masks, and uncovering your truest self. It's about understanding that what we ignore controls us, but what we face transforms us. The journey into the unconscious isn't easy. It requires honesty, courage, and patience, but Jung believed it was necessary for true psychological growth. Without this journey, we live in patterns, repeat the same mistakes, and project our own inner struggles onto others. But with it, we begin to live with awareness, purpose, and a sense of wholeness. In today's world, where distractions are endless and self-reflection is rare, Jung's message is more relevant than ever. We are encouraged to focus on how we look, what we achieve, and how we compare to others. But Jung reminds us that none of that truly defines us. What defines us is often hidden, waiting to be discovered, deep within. So, if you've ever asked yourself, who am I really? Jung would say, start with your unconscious, because until you understand the parts of yourself that live in the dark, you can never fully shine in the light. Let's now begin this journey into Jung's world and explore how his theories continue to unlock the mysteries of human behavior. Carl Gustav Jung wasn't just a psychologist. He was a pioneer, a thinker, a seeker of truth far beyond what science could measure. Born in 1875 in Switzerland, Jung grew up in a deeply religious family, surrounded by symbols, rituals, and questions about the soul. These early experiences planted the seeds of what would become his life's work, exploring the mysterious inner world of the human mind. Jung originally studied medicine and psychiatry, and early in his career, he became a close collaborator of Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Freud saw Jung as his intellectual heir, and for a while their partnership seemed unstoppable. But it wasn't long before their paths diverged. While Freud focused primarily on sexuality and repressed desires as the core of human psychology, Jung felt this was too narrow. He believed that the psyche was much more than a bundle of repressed instincts. It was a vast, dynamic system filled with meaning, myth, and deep spiritual yearning. Their break was painful but necessary. Jung wanted to go further, into realms Freud had no interest in. He wanted to understand not just mental illness, but the total human experience, dreams, myths, religion, art, and the search for purpose. He asked questions most psychologists wouldn't dare ask. Why do ancient myths appear in our dreams? Why are we drawn to symbols we've never seen before? Is there a universal pattern in the human soul? This curiosity led Jung to one of his most important discoveries, the collective unconscious. Unlike the personal unconscious, which holds our forgotten memories and repressed thoughts, the collective unconscious is something we all share. It contains ancient patterns, images, and instincts that have been passed down through generations. These are not learned. They are inherited, part of what it means to be human. We'll explore this concept deeply in later sections, but for now know that it was this idea that truly set Jung apart. But Jung wasn't just a theorist. He was a man who lived his ideas. In fact, after his break with Freud, Jung went through what he called a confrontation with the unconscious. He withdrew from public life and began to explore his own psyche through dreams, visions, and imagination. This wasn't a descent into madness. It was a conscious exploration of his inner world. During this time, he recorded his experiences in a mysterious and powerful book, known as the Red Book, filled with vivid paintings and writings that revealed his deep inner journey. This personal exploration wasn't selfish or self-indulgent. Jung believed that understanding oneself was the foundation of helping others. His work with patients reflected this. He didn't treat them as broken machines to be fixed, but as souls searching for meaning. He believed symptoms were not just problems, they were messages, clues, symbols trying to guide the person back to wholeness. Jung was also deeply interested in spirituality, not in a religious dogma sense, but in a psychological one. He studied Eastern philosophies, alchemy, Gnosticism, astrology, and ancient mythologies. He believed that these traditions contained symbolic truths about the human psyche, and he often used them to help explain the inner workings of the unconscious. Despite criticism from the scientific community, Jung held firm. He knew he was stepping outside the traditional boundaries of psychology, but he believed that understanding the soul required more than logic. It required openness, imagination, and a willingness to look within. Jung also gave us many concepts that have become part of everyday language: introvert and extrovert, archetypes, persona, shadow, and individuation, to name just a few. But these aren't just psychological terms. They are tools for understanding ourselves on a deeper level. Carl Jung died in 1961, but his ideas live on, not just in psychology, but in literature, film, religion, and even modern self-help movements. Wherever people are asking deep questions about who they are, Jung's influence is there. In the end, Jung was a man who dared to explore what most ignored: the invisible forces shaping our lives from within. He believed that true healing, growth, and transformation come not from avoiding the unconscious, but by diving into it. He looked deeper, and he invites us to do the same. Every human being lives in two psychological worlds, one we are aware of and one we are not. Carl Jung described these two realms as the conscious and the unconscious mind. To understand ourselves fully, he believed, we must understand how these two inner worlds operate, and more importantly, how they influence each other. Let's start with the conscious mind. This is the part of you that is awake, alert, and aware. It's what you use to make decisions, plan your day, speak, write, and think logically. It's the voice in your head that you identify as you. It's your current thoughts, feelings, and experiences, the part of your mind that interacts with the external world. If your mind was a theater, the conscious mind would be the spotlight shining on the main actor on stage. But here's the key: the conscious mind is only a tiny fraction of who you are. Jung compared it to a small island surrounded by a vast, deep ocean. That ocean is your unconscious mind. It contains everything that isn't currently in your awareness: forgotten memories, emotional wounds, instinctual drives, dreams, desires, and even parts of your personality you don't acknowledge. And while it might seem hidden, it's constantly influencing your thoughts, behaviors, and relationships, silently shaping your life from below the surface. For example, have you ever met someone and instantly disliked them, but couldn't explain why? Or found yourself repeating the same mistakes in relationships or work, even when you tried to change? Jung would say, these are signals from the unconscious. It's not that you're broken or irrational. It's that your unconscious mind is trying to act out patterns you haven't yet brought into the light of consciousness. One of the most important ideas Jung introduced is that the unconscious isn't just personal. It's also collective, meaning we share it with all of humanity. But within our own individual unconscious, we each carry what Jung called a personal unconscious, made up of our own forgotten experiences, traumas, and repressed desires. And this is closely linked to our conscious identity. However, the conscious mind likes to think it's in charge. It creates stories about who we are. I'm strong. I'm a good person. I'm in control. But often these are only half-truths. Beneath them lies a more complicated picture, one that includes emotions we've avoided, qualities we've denied, and motivations we don't fully understand. Jung didn't see the unconscious as a place of evil or chaos. He saw it as neutral yet powerful, filled with both potential and danger. It holds what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject or suppress, but it also holds creativity, wisdom, and spiritual insight. In fact, Jung believed that by connecting with the unconscious, we could access forgotten parts of the self and discover our full potential. He even described the unconscious as compensatory, meaning it tries to balance what the conscious mind lacks. So if you are overly rational in your daily life, your unconscious might show you dreams filled with emotion, mystery, or chaos, not to frighten you, but to restore balance. The interaction between the conscious and unconscious minds is a constant, dynamic dance. Jung emphasized that problems arise when we ignore the unconscious or try to silence it. Suppressed emotions can lead to anxiety, depression, and even physical illness. But when we learn to listen to the unconscious, through dreams, reflection, art, or therapy, it becomes a guide rather than a saboteur. It helps us uncover inner truths, solve emotional puzzles, and become more whole. One of Jung's key teachings is that the goal of life isn't perfection, it's wholeness. And to be whole, we must bring the unconscious into conscious awareness. This process, which Jung called individuation, is not about fixing ourselves, but about integrating all the parts of who we are. Light and dark, known and unknown, accepted and rejected. Think of your mind as a house. The conscious mind is like the main floor, neat, decorated, and familiar. But there's a basement, the unconscious, filled with old furniture, forgotten photographs, locked boxes, and maybe even hidden treasures. Most people never go down there, but Jung invites us to take the flashlight, descend the stairs, and begin to explore, because what's down there isn't meant to stay hidden forever. It's waiting to be understood, accepted, and brought into the light. By understanding the difference between the conscious and unconscious, we begin to see that we are more than our thoughts, more than our emotions, and certainly more than our labels. We are complex, layered beings, and the journey to know ourselves starts not at the surface, but deep within. Beneath the surface of your everyday awareness lies a rich and complex layer of your mind that Carl Jung called the personal unconscious. It's not some distant, abstract concept. It's the deeply personal part of you that quietly stores your forgotten memories, unresolved emotions, and experiences you've pushed aside. Whether you realize it or not, this hidden realm silently influences your thoughts, behaviors, and even your relationships. So what exactly is the personal unconscious? According to Jung, the personal unconscious is made up of content that was once conscious, but has been forgotten or repressed. This could include anything from a childhood memory you haven't thought about in years, to painful experiences your mind buried because they were too difficult to handle at the time. While Freud also spoke about the unconscious, focusing mostly on repressed desires and traumas, Jung expanded the idea. He didn't view the personal unconscious only as a storage room for unwanted feelings. He saw it as a dynamic system filled with both emotional wounds and unrealized potential. Imagine you've lived through a situation where you were embarrassed in front of others, maybe as a child in school. That moment, though brief, might have left a strong emotional imprint. Even if you don't consciously remember it, the emotion attached to it, shame, fear, insecurity, could still live in your personal unconscious. Later in life, you might find yourself afraid to speak in public or overly sensitive to criticism, without fully understanding why. That's the personal unconscious at work. It doesn't forget, even when you do. One key feature of the personal unconscious is what Jung called complexes. These are emotionally charged clusters of thoughts, feelings, and memories, organized around a central theme. For example, someone with a mother complex might have conflicting feelings about nurturing, dependence, or authority, shaped by early interactions with their mother. These complexes live below awareness but can rise to the surface unexpectedly. In dreams, emotional reactions, or behavior patterns that seem irrational. Jung believed that one of the most important tasks in personal development is to become aware of these complexes, not to get rid of them, but to understand them. Why? Because what we don't understand about ourselves often controls us. You might think you're choosing your reactions freely, but if a complex is triggered, you may be acting from old wounds, not current reality. The personal unconscious is also home to repressed desires, not just sexual or aggressive urges as Freud focused on, but any impulse or feeling we've been taught to reject. If you grew up in a family or culture where certain emotions like anger or sadness were not allowed, you may have pushed them deep into the unconscious, but that doesn't mean they disappeared. They wait and often emerge through unexpected channels, a sudden outburst, a dream, or a behavior you can't explain. Jung also emphasized that the personal unconscious isn't just made of negative content. It holds positive qualities you may have ignored or forgotten. Courage, creativity, passion, even talents you were too afraid to explore. These are often called inferior functions in Jungian psychology, parts of your personality that don't dominate your conscious life, but still exist within you. Reconnecting with them can lead to surprising personal growth and transformation. How can you access the personal unconscious? Jung believed that one of the best tools is dream analysis. Dreams are direct messages from the unconscious, symbolic stories that express what your conscious mind may not be ready to hear. Journaling, art, meditation, and therapy are other effective methods. The key is to develop an attitude of listening, to become curious about your inner life without judgment. It's important to understand that the goal isn't to make everything unconscious, conscious all at once. That would be overwhelming. Instead, Jung encouraged a gradual process, noticing patterns, paying attention to your emotional reactions, exploring your dreams, and asking deep questions about why you feel or act a certain way. In Jung's view, ignoring the personal unconscious leads to inner conflict, self-sabotage, and projection, blaming others for the parts of ourselves we haven't yet owned. But by turning inward, we begin to reclaim our hidden parts and create a deeper, more honest relationship with ourselves. The personal unconscious is not a place of weakness. It's a place of potential. It holds the raw material for self-awareness, healing, and transformation. When we dare to look into it, we stop running from ourselves and start the real work of becoming whole. So the next time you feel stuck, emotional, or confused by your own behavior, remember, your unconscious may be trying to speak, and if you listen, you just might discover the parts of you that have been. Carl Jung introduced a groundbreaking idea that set his work apart from every other psychological theory of his time: the collective unconscious. While the personal unconscious contains your individual experiences, memories, and repressed emotions, the collective unconscious is something far deeper, older, and universal. It's not just yours, it belongs to all of us. It's the psychological inheritance of the entire human species. Jung discovered this concept through his work with patients, many of whom described dream symbols or emotional experiences they had never encountered in real life. How could someone dream of ancient gods, unfamiliar cultures, or mythological creatures without ever being exposed to them? The answer, he believed, was that these images live within us all. They're not learned, they're inborn. The collective unconscious is made up of what Jung called archetypes, fundamental symbolic patterns and roles that are repeated throughout history, mythology, religion, and even popular culture. These archetypes aren't literal images, but are more like deep emotional themes that shape how we perceive and experience life. You might never have studied ancient mythology, but you still understand the essence of the hero, the mother, the wise old man, or the trickster, because these roles are embedded in your psyche. just like they are in everyone else's. Think of the collective unconscious like the human DNA of the mind. Just as all humans are born with a physical blueprint, two eyes, a heart, a nervous system, Jung believed we are also born with a psychological blueprint, shared patterns that shape how we dream, feel, and make sense of the world. These archetypes show up in dreams, fantasies, religious experiences, and even in the characters and stories we're drawn to. Why do we love tales of heroes overcoming darkness? Why do people across the world, across time, independently create myths about gods, demons, creation, and rebirth? Because these stories reflect archetypal truths about the human condition. They speak to the parts of us that are older than reason, parts we can feel but not fully explain. But the collective unconscious isn't just about fairy tales and symbols. It's deeply practical. It influences how we see ourselves and others, often without us realizing it. For example, a person may unconsciously project the mother archetype onto a teacher, boss, or romantic partner, expecting them to nurture or protect, even if that role doesn't fit. Or someone may be trapped in a victim or martyr archetype, unable to step into their power because they unconsciously believe suffering is their identity. These patterns can guide or limit us depending on how aware we are of them. Jung emphasized that the collective unconscious is not a second mind or a separate spirit. It's a shared psychic structure. It doesn't override your individuality, but it does shape the framework through which you experience life. Understanding this can help us realize that many of our deepest struggles are not just personal, but connected to the broader human journey. Let's take the shadow archetype, the darker side of human nature, the parts we deny or fear. Every culture has myths about monsters, devils, or dark forces. These aren't just superstitions. They're symbolic expressions of the inner battle between light and dark. Jung believed that unless we confront the shadow within ourselves, we'll continue to see it in the outside world, blaming others or falling into cycles of fear and conflict. Another powerful archetype is the self, not the ego, your sense of identity, but the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, masculine and feminine. The self represents the inner wholeness we are all moving toward, even if we're not aware of it. Jung believed that the journey of life is ultimately a journey toward becoming this whole self, a process he called individuation, which we'll explore in a later section. Understanding the collective unconscious allows us to see that our personal experiences are part of a much larger human story. You are not alone in your fears, dreams, desires, or challenges. You are connected to billions of others through invisible psychological threads, and by becoming aware of the archetypes operating in your life, you can begin to make more conscious choices, not just react automatically to unconscious patterns. In a world that often feels disconnected and fragmented, Jung's theory of the collective unconscious offers a powerful reminder. We are all deeply linked, not just by language or culture, but by something older and deeper. By exploring these universal patterns, we don't just understand ourselves better, we also understand humanity. Deep within your unconscious mind lives a cast of symbolic characters, timeless patterns that shape the way you think, feel, and behave. Carl Jung called these patterns archetypes, and he believed they are part of the collective unconscious, meaning they exist in every human being across all cultures and times. You may not see them directly, but they are constantly playing roles in the background of your inner life. What are archetypes exactly? They are not specific memories or images, but universal psychic structures, emotional blueprints that influence how we respond to life. Think of them as inner characters or energy forms that express different parts of who we are. Jung observed that regardless of culture, humans tend to create similar stories, symbols, and mythological figures. Why? Because we're all drawing from the same inner source, archetypes. Some of the most well-known archetypes include the hero, the part of you that seeks to overcome challenges, fight for what's right, and grow through adversity. Think of figures like Hercules, Batman, or even modern activists. The mother, symbolizing nurturing, protection, and creation. This can show up as literal mothers, but also as caregivers, nature, or even your own inner need to comfort and protect. The shadow, your dark side, the qualities you reject, deny, or fear within yourself. But it's also a source of strength and honesty, if confronted. The wise old man, woman, represents wisdom, guidance, and insight. This figure often appears in dreams or stories as a mentor or spiritual guide. The trickster, a playful, chaotic force that breaks the rules and exposes hypocrisy. It can be frustrating, but also a teacher that shakes us out of stagnation. These archetypes aren't just ideas. They live through you. For example, when you face a major challenge and dig deep to find strength, your inner hero is activated. When you comfort a friend in pain, your inner mother steps forward. When you sabotage your own goals or feel envy, the shadow is at work. What's powerful and dangerous about archetypes is that they often operate unconsciously. You might become possessed by an archetype without realizing it. Jung warned that when we over-identify with one archetype, it can distort our perception. For example, someone stuck in the hero archetype may push themselves to exhaustion, always trying to save others while ignoring their own needs. Or someone overly identified with the victim may see every challenge as an attack, missing opportunities for growth. Understanding archetypes helps you recognize these patterns and step back from them. Rather than being controlled by them, you can work with them, calling on different archetypes as needed. For example, you might channel the warrior when facing a tough decision, the magician when seeking insight, or the lover when connecting deeply with others. Jung didn't see archetypes as fixed roles, but as energies that evolve over time. In childhood, the innocent may dominate. In midlife, the seeker, destroyer, or creator may take over. And in later life, the sage or elder might become your guide. Each archetype represents a different stage of growth, and understanding where you are can help you move forward with purpose. Archetypes also appear in dreams, often as symbolic characters or events. If you dream of being chased by a monster, Jung would encourage you to ask, what part of myself am I running from? That monster might be your shadow. If you dream of a wise animal or an ancient figure offering advice, you might be meeting your inner wise one. Even in movies and books, we're drawn to characters that reflect our inner archetypes. That's why mythic stories are so powerful. They mirror our own unconscious journeys. When we watch Frodo carry the ring or Neo awaken in the Matrix, we're seeing parts of ourselves. Jung believed that by studying myths, symbols, and stories, we can better understand the architecture of our own minds. Ultimately, Jung taught that the goal is not to reject any archetype, but to integrate them. To know when the hero is needed, but also when to rest. To listen to the sage, but stay connected to the lover. To face the shadow, but not be consumed by it. When we learn to recognize and respect these inner forces, we gain not just insight, but freedom. We are no longer puppets pulled by invisible strings, but conscious individuals walking a path toward wholeness. The archetypes are not outside of you. They are you. They live in your dreams, your fears, your hopes, and your creativity. And the more you understand them, the more you understand yourself. Carl Jung made a clear distinction between two vital parts of your psychological makeup: the ego and the self. These aren't just abstract terms, They are central to understanding how your mind works and how you can grow into a more whole and authentic person. Let's start with the ego. In Jungian psychology, the ego is not about arrogance or pride. Instead, it refers to your conscious identity, the part of you that says, "This is who I am." It includes your name, memories, beliefs, personal goals, and the roles you play in life. Your ego helps you navigate the world. It makes decisions, solves problems, and defines how you see yourself in relation to others. The ego is essential. Without it, you wouldn't have a stable sense of self, but it's also limited. The ego only knows what it has experienced directly. It prefers control, logic, and structure. It wants to maintain a consistent story about who you are, even if that story is incomplete or false. That's where problems can begin. Because the ego is so focused on maintaining control, it often rejects or ignores the parts of you that don't fit its story. It pushes away difficult emotions, inconvenient truths, or impulses that seem irrational. This is how the shadow and the personal unconscious are formed. Over time, your ego may come to believe that it represents your whole self, but it doesn't. That brings us to the self, which Jung described as the true center and totality of your psyche. The self includes everything you are, not just your conscious identity, the ego, but also your unconscious mind, your shadow, your potential, your dreams, and your inner purpose. It is the fullest version of you, whether you're aware of it yet or not. You might think of the ego as a small boat and the self as the ocean beneath it. The ego floats on the surface, dealing with daily waves and winds. It thinks it's in charge, but the self is vast, deep, and ancient. It holds the real power. The more the ego learns to listen to the self instead of trying to dominate it, the more balanced and meaningful your life becomes. So what happens when the ego is too strong or too weak? If your ego is too dominant, you may become rigid, overly rational, or resistant to change. You might think you know yourself completely and reject anything unfamiliar. On the other hand, if your ego is too weak, you might feel lost, overly emotional, or unable to function in the world. You need a healthy ego to interact with life, but not at the cost of ignoring your deeper truth. Jung believed that psychological growth happens when the ego gradually aligns with the self. This process requires humility. The ego must admit that it's not the center of the universe. That's not easy. It often begins with a crisis, a depression, loss, or identity breakdown, where the ego realizes it doesn't have all the answers. These moments can feel painful and confusing, but Jung saw them as openings to something deeper, the call of the self. The self often speaks through symbols, dreams, or synchronicities, those strange coincidences that feel charged with meaning. It draws your attention to the things you've been avoiding, the truths you've buried. Its goal is not to destroy the ego, but to transform it, to help it evolve into a more accurate reflection of your full humanity. When the ego surrenders its illusion of control and begins to serve the self, a new kind of inner harmony becomes possible. You no longer live from fear, pride, or social expectation. You begin to live from the inside out, guided by a sense of purpose that isn't forced but felt. This alignment of ego and self is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong journey. At times, the ego will resist. It will want to protect the old identity, but with patience and self-reflection, the ego can learn to trust the deeper wisdom of the self. And in doing so, you step into a life that is more honest, more integrated, and more fully your own. So while the ego says, "This is who I think I am," the self whispers, "This is who you truly are." And every moment of awareness brings you closer to that truth. The process of individuation is at the heart of Carl Jung's psychological philosophy. It's the journey toward becoming your whole, authentic self. While the word might sound complex, individuation is essentially about integration, bringing together the many fragmented parts of your personality into a balanced, harmonious whole. From childhood, your psyche is divided into different elements: your conscious identity, ego; your shadow, the hidden or denied parts; your anima or animus, the inner feminine or masculine; and many archetypes residing in the collective unconscious. Often these parts remain separate or in conflict, causing inner tension and confusion. Individuation is the process where you become aware of these hidden parts, embrace them, and unite them into your conscious self. It's not about perfect harmony, but about acknowledging and integrating all sides of your personality: the light and the dark, the known and the unknown. Jung believed that this journey is essential for true psychological health. Without it, we risk living fragmented lives, feeling alienated from ourselves, stuck in repetitive patterns, or projecting our inner conflicts onto others. Individuation helps us develop a richer self-understanding, greater inner peace, and a more meaningful relationship with the world. The path of individuation often begins with encountering your shadow. This shadow contains everything you've rejected or denied about yourself: fears, desires, weaknesses, or impulses. Facing the shadow can be uncomfortable and even frightening, because it forces you to confront parts of yourself you might prefer to ignore. But it's necessary. The shadow holds not only your limitations, but also your greatest potential for growth. Next, individuation involves engaging with your anima or animus, the unconscious feminine side in men and masculine side in women. These inner counterparts help balance your psyche by introducing qualities you might have suppressed due to social or cultural conditioning. For example, a man may need to connect more deeply with his emotions and intuition, anima, while a woman might discover strength and assertiveness through her animus. Dreams, symbols, and active imagination are vital tools in this process. They allow you to communicate with your unconscious mind, uncover hidden truths, and explore archetypal energies shaping your inner world. Jung emphasized paying attention to these experiences without censorship or fear. Individuation is not about becoming perfect or free from flaws. Instead, it's about embracing your complexity and contradictions. It's learning to live authentically, with awareness of both your conscious intentions and unconscious influences. By integrating unconscious material into consciousness, you become less reactive and more self-aware. You develop the ability to make conscious choices rather than being driven by unconscious impulses or societal expectations. This leads to a deeper sense of freedom and responsibility. Importantly, individuation connects you with the self, Jung's concept of the totality of your psyche. As you move through this process, your ego gradually aligns with the self, resulting in greater psychological balance and wholeness. This alignment fosters a sense of purpose and inner harmony, guiding you toward your unique life path. While individuation is deeply personal, it also has universal significance. Jung saw it as part of the collective human journey, a spiritual evolution that transcends individual differences. It's a movement toward unity within yourself and connection with the larger human experience. In modern terms, individuation can be seen as the lifelong work of self-discovery, personal growth, and meaning-making. It challenges you to step out of autopilot living, question inherited beliefs, and become the author of your own story. Although the path can be challenging, it's also deeply rewarding. Each step forward brings you closer to authenticity and balance. You learn to accept your shadows and strengths, your fears and hopes, your inner child and wise elder, all parts of the rich tapestry of who you are. In short, individuation is the transformative journey of becoming fully yourself. It's an invitation to explore the depths of your psyche, embrace your complexity, and live with greater awareness and purpose. This journey doesn't end. It evolves throughout your life, continually revealing new layers of meaning and possibility. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind is not just a hidden storage of forgotten memories, but a powerful dynamic force that communicates with us in mysterious ways. One of the most fascinating ways this communication happens is through dreams. For Jung, dreams were like messages from the unconscious, full of symbols and images that, when understood, can reveal deep truths about ourselves and guide us toward healing and growth. Unlike the Freudian view, which often reduced dreams to disguised wishes or repressed desires, Jung saw dreams as meaningful narratives that express the language of the unconscious. He believed dreams speak in symbols because the unconscious doesn't use words the way our conscious mind does. Instead, it uses images, metaphors, and archetypal figures that carry emotional and psychological significance. When you dream, your unconscious is trying to communicate with your conscious ego, often bringing to light what the ego ignores or hides. This might be unresolved conflicts, fears, hopes, or even future possibilities. Dreams can help you recognize parts of yourself that you might have rejected, like the shadow, or reveal your inner guidance through wise figures or animals. Jung introduced the idea of dream interpretation as a way to unlock this symbolic language. He emphasized that no single symbol has one fixed meaning. Instead, the meaning depends on the dreamer's personal life and context. For example, water in a dream could symbolize emotions, rebirth, or danger, depending on how it appears and what it means to you personally. One key idea Jung introduced is that dreams often contain compensatory messages. This means they balance your conscious attitudes by showing what you're neglecting. If you're overly rational and controlling in waking life, your dreams might be wild, emotional, or chaotic, urging you to integrate those qualities. This balancing act helps you move toward psychological wholeness. Jung also found that dreams frequently feature archetypal figures: the hero, the wise old man, the trickster, or the animus, who represent universal patterns and energies. Meeting these figures in dreams is like encountering guides from the collective unconscious, helping you navigate inner challenges or transitions. Another powerful aspect of dreams is their role in the process of individuation. Jung saw dreams as vital tools in this journey because they expose unconscious material that needs to be integrated. By paying attention to recurring symbols or themes, you can discover hidden parts of yourself and move toward balance. Jung encouraged keeping a dream journal, writing down dreams immediately upon waking, and reflecting on the emotions and symbols they contain. Over time, patterns may emerge, revealing your unconscious concerns and aspirations. It's important to remember that dreams are not always literal or easy to decode. Sometimes a dream's meaning may remain mysterious or shift over time. Jung believed this ambiguity is part of their power. They invite you to explore your inner world creatively, not just apply simple explanations. In addition to personal insight, Jung also recognized that dreams can have collective significance. During times of social or cultural crisis, dreams may express fears or hopes shared by many people. This shows how the collective unconscious and archetypes work not just in individuals, but in societies as well. By engaging with your dreams consciously, you open a dialogue with your unconscious mind. This can bring healing, guidance, and deeper self-awareness. Dreams help bridge the gap between what you know and what you still need to discover. In essence, Jung saw dreams as a rich source of wisdom, a secret language of the soul. They invite you to listen beyond your waking thoughts, to explore hidden depths, and to awaken to the fullness of your being. Through dreams, the unconscious reaches out, offering clues to your true self and the path toward wholeness. Carl Jung introduced the groundbreaking concept of synchronicity to describe those meaningful coincidences that seem to defy logical explanation. Unlike regular chance events, synchronicities carry a sense of purpose or connection, as if the universe itself is sending you a message. These moments often occur when your inner psychological state and external events align in a way that feels deeply significant. Imagine thinking about a long-lost friend and then unexpectedly running into them that same day, or struggling with an important decision and suddenly encountering a symbol, word, or event that seems to offer guidance. These experiences aren't just random. They have an uncanny quality that makes you stop and wonder about hidden connections. Jung believed synchronicity reveals a profound link between the inner world of the psyche and the outer physical world. He called it an acausal connecting principle, meaning that these events are connected not by cause and effect, but by meaning. This challenged the traditional scientific view that everything must have a clear cause. Instead, Jung suggested there is another layer of reality where meaning and connection transcend ordinary time and space. Synchronicity often happens at pivotal moments, during times of inner conflict, transformation, or crisis, when your unconscious is trying to communicate with you. These meaningful coincidences can act like signposts, guiding you toward insight, confirming a decision, or awakening you to deeper truths about yourself and your path. What makes synchronicity remarkable is how it bridges the gap between your subjective experience and objective reality. It's as if the universe mirrors what's happening inside you. This connection can be comforting and inspiring, reminding you that you are part of a larger whole. Jung saw synchronicity as closely linked to archetypes and the collective unconscious. Archetypal symbols can appear in synchronistic events, intensifying their significance. For example, seeing a serpent during a time of personal transformation may echo the archetypal symbol of rebirth and healing. Importantly, synchronicity is not about superstition or magical thinking. It doesn't predict the future or control your fate. Rather, it invites you to pay attention, reflect, and find meaning in unexpected moments. It encourages openness to mystery and the unknown aspects of life. In practical terms, becoming aware of synchronicity means cultivating sensitivity to your inner world and external experiences. It involves trusting your intuition and being present to the signs around you. This awareness can deepen your self-understanding and enrich your spiritual journey. Many people describe experiencing synchronicity as awe-inspiring or life-changing. It can shift your perspective, helping you see your life as part of an interconnected web of meaning rather than isolated events. This shift fosters a sense of purpose, belonging, and wonder. In summary, synchronicity reveals the magical interplay between your psyche and the world. It shows that beneath the surface of everyday life lies a tapestry woven with meaning and connection. By tuning into these meaningful coincidences, you open the door to profound insights and a more integrated, conscious way of living, one that embraces both reason and mystery.